Hello, everybody. I'm Steve Costello, calling in from the south of France. And just for a change, my partner in crime, Patience Modevi, is actually on the same time zone. She's over there in Madrid, Spain. Still quite a long journey from me, about 9 hours, I think, by drive. So it's quite a long way. But at least from the same time zone, which makes life considerably easier. You wouldn't
Easier.
believe what an hour can do. So, Patience, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm learning a bit of the Spanish lingo. I'm joking. No, it's been good. It's been good. And yourself, you've been okay?
Yeah, as you can see behind me, I'm kind of sitting in a building site. Well, it's not a building site. We're in process of moving house, and the top floor of our new house has been converted. So you can see behind me there's board, but it's not complete yet. It will be complete quite soon. But in the meantime, I've got to manage. Such is life. But I don't need a pretty office to do amazing things, So
Exactly.
that's the way to look at it. So we've been talking a lot about culture and cultural differences and some of the challenges that come with that for the last few weeks. And we need to kind of finish with that topic right now. Although it never goes away, it will never be out of our minds. We'll always raise it and re-raise it because it is so important. And one of the things that I was thinking of before Patience and I met today was when I was around about 12 years old and I kind of got big enough to get on the bus without my parents and go into town, one of the things I discovered in town was small gangs of ethnic groups that were quite aggressive toward me and my own friends. We were very quiet and we kind of avoided trouble, but these little groups were fairly aggressive toward us. Some of the groups were Pakistani, some of the groups were Indian, some of the groups were West Indian. And I couldn't understand it. I was a bit naive, I wasn't into all this difference. But yet, the way I looked at it was that these were people just like me. We were all different colors. We had kind of different cultural backgrounds. But for me, we were one and the same. We were human beings. So as I got older, I began to dig a little bit and say, hey, come on, what is it? What's happening here? And what came up was that the parents of these young people had suffered such extreme levels of racism that what the kids were doing were responding. They were kind of saying, well, you did this to our parents. Well, it's now time for us to get our own back, which is not a good way to go, but it's the only thing they knew. We've got to kind of protect ourselves. We don't want that happening to us. We don't want that happening to our kids as we get older and so on and so forth. So there was a whole lot of negative stuff going on around the cultural, uh, let's call it the cultural scene. That's probably not a good way to describe it, but let's just stick with that for now. But my attitude was, no, we've got to be together. We've got to work together. We've got to live together. We've got to do everything together. So let's find ways to connect. Thankfully, that's quite some years ago now, and we are doing an awful lot more in society to connect. But we still got those dodgy stories around. The Blackburn story that I shared a few episodes ago, where the guy had a very unusual attitude toward members of the white community. So we still have to keep working on this. But I think the big message here is inclusion. We work with young people and their parents. We work with young people and their parents, regardless of where they live, what they do, what their economic situation is. And this is something I want to emphasize. I think it's really important. So I'm not going to stay on my soapbox any longer. I think I've been there long enough already. So
No,
Patience,
no,
what
no,
do
no,
you
no.
think?
No, I think you're exactly right. And so before you, I mean, if you've been following us for a bit, you know that before we go live, we already start the discussion and we go into our experiences and expertise. And when Steve shared this story earlier, I was talking about France and the way young people feel in the banlieue of Paris, the suburbs of Paris. And to be honest with you, I don't know why I didn't think closer home. So basically, in the UK, where normally I live and I reside, especially in London, there is typical places that are um, that are labeled as dangerous, as don't go there or don't go here. For someone like me who's a South Londoner, when people say to me South London is so dangerous, I'm like, what? No, there's nothing dangerous there. It's amazing over there. There's greenery. There's this. There's that. However, yes, there are some difficulties in terms of like the way certain young people are seen, and most of the time their label so is going to be from a family that is a one parents family. The maybe the mother is working all the time and the child is outside, so therefore they'll think that, oh, this child has no education. The label comes in really really quickly, and then with that labeling comes other things. So what we need to understand is that the economic status of a family is also affecting, I wouldn't say the education, but where the young people are gonna be and who they're gonna be with, whether you want it or not. And I'm not making a general. Oh, let me. I'm not putting a general statement here. I'm just saying that it happens often. And what happened is that there is this idea that, okay, this is a single mother with, for example, a boy, a young boy, is 16. She's not home. She's working. Where is he? He's with his friend outside. They don't know what they're doing. Obviously, they're creating mischief and this and that and all of this. I'm not saying that there are no gang problems or gang issues. There are. What I'm saying is that also, as a society, we tend, in general, to put the label on top. So not only they've got the difficulty of what they are living, but plus we put the stamp on it. And then after we put the stamp on it, there's the behavior that we are creating um, towards them, not for them, towards them.
Yeah.
And that creates a cycle that is kind of like never ending. So the idea here, and what we were discussing with Steve earlier, is that what about compassion? What about showing humanity? What about showing that we're all the same? What about creating this kind of idea that we there is no differences. Yes, there is differences in terms of culture, but there's no differences in terms of the society in which we live. We all together, and we are a melting pot for a reason. So why not embrace that fully?
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's a great point. As you were talking, the question came into my head, Patience, what do you expect? And the idea is if you put somebody in a box, what are they going to do? What do you expect? They're going to try and get out. They may try and get out in a very positive way and do some
Mm,
great things, but they may not know how to do those great things. Therefore, they get out in a very aggressive way.
yeah,
And that doesn't end well. So, what do you expect? I think that's a question we've got to ask ourselves as parents. If our behavior leads our young people to do certain things, good things or bad things, we need to ask
yeah,
ourselves, what do we expect? That's a good question. It's a very easy question. And I was just thinking, so we were going to talk about values today, the
mm,
values you need to build a strong foundation. So we've already said if you put somebody in a box, that value of putting somebody in a box to control them is not going to build a strong foundation,
mm, mm,
not for most people, maybe for a few. So what values do we need to build strong foundations? Now I've got a little exercise that is easy to do mostly, but it's also quite challenging. And the exercise is this: all you need is a sheet of paper or a computer screen or a phone, notepad, whatever. It doesn't matter what it is, you choose. And ask yourself, what are your values? What are your values? And just write them down, type them out, whatever. Don't analyze them, just get them all down and onto a page. And when you've exhausted that list, go back through it. Ask yourself a question. Do these values serve me? And be brutal, be honest. Do these values serve me? And you can put a Y and or an N at the end of each value, or a plus or a minus. It doesn't matter what you do. Just make sure you know which values serve you and which values appear not to. And then go back once more and ask yourself another question. Do these values serve my family, my children, my partner, whatever? And then you're going to need a different symbol or a different color. Do the same exercise, go through all the values. And when you've done that, see if you find any surprises about these values. Which values are relevant? Are there any that need to be removed, or are there any that need to be just tweaked a little bit? Quite probably there will be. I know when I do this exercise occasionally, I find a value that's okay, that's a good value, but it's not quite working right now because the situation around me has changed. So you need to change things a little bit sometimes. There may even be some values that you think, actually, that came from my history, that came from my dad's dad or whatever, and really it's not relevant today. We need to get rid of that one. Now sometimes that's difficult, but we need to at least be able to think about it. And then at the end of all of that, it's a great exercise to share your values with a partner, with a child, somebody close to you, and just see how they feel about these values. It's not a confrontational exercise, it's a sharing exercise, and it's a great exercise. So I recommend it. If you want to do it and you need some feedback, great, drop us some messages. Patience or I will be happy to do that. So Patience, values, where are we going to go with this?
I think for me, this episode is really a kind of like wrapping up, the Blackburn story series, and we spoke a lot about a lot of things there. And even today we mentioned some new things. But what I realize is that your values are going to change anyway, like Steve was saying. Doing an assessment of your values is going to be really good. But one thing that I think is the foundation for me for values is truth and really being honest and frank with yourself. No one is there to judge you as a parent. No one is going to judge you because no one is a perfect parent. And I think we talk about this a lot already, Steve and I. There are no perfect parents, and there are no perfect child, like the perfect young person. There's no. So the idea is that those values, not only they're going to change looking at where you're at in your life or what's happening in your family or your environment, but also I think that Steve already said it, some things serves us until a point, and then it does not serve us anymore, and then we need to move forward. And I want to give a quick example here. Is, for example, this narrative of so basically being a black person is tough. It comes with its own difficulties. Yet what you're gonna take? You're gonna take the positive or you're gonna take the negative? And taking the negative and staying into that narrative, what is it going to bring to you? So I could use this as an excuse. This is my identity, being black. Being black is not a characteristic I decided I wanted. Is this my identity? but how am I going to use it? Am I going to use it in a way where I'm going to be blaming everything that happens to say that I am a black person and that's why this is happening? Or am I going to say, okay, yes, there are some socio-economic issues that are there and we can't ignore them, yet I'm going to use my strengths, you know, with my culture, with my tradition, to do the best that I can for myself and for my family. And I think this is where the exercise that Steve shared is really important, because that's how you now start to see, oh, hold on, I've been saying this over and over and over again, but is this actually serving me? It might not be, you know?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's a great question. Is this actually serving me? I think it is so important. So, where are we going to go next? One of the words that frequently comes up with me in my work with clients, it's not because clients raise it, but it's because they say things that my little brain says, "Oh, there's that word again." The word is fear. What are your fears? We've all got fears of some description. I have a fear in relation to my 17-year-old daughter because she's at that stage in her life where she needs to start making decisions quite soon, where she needs to decide, well, this is what I want to do as a career, therefore this is what I need to do after school when she finishes school next year. So there's all kinds of questions. So it's kind of a fear. So it's not fear as in being scared of a movie. It's little fears that affect the way we think, because if these fears get big and unmanageable, they distract us from what we need to be doing, and that gets a little bit different. A little bit difficult. No, well, different as well, maybe, but difficult. So fear is something that we need to consider. What are your fears? Ask yourself, what are my fears as a parent? My 17-year-old at the moment, who are just thinking about thinking, she's been through a stage where she was a little bit difficult, didn't want to talk to anybody, hides out in her room, blah, blah. Anybody recognizing any of this? Sometimes sounds a bit aggressive, but because you know her, that she's not an aggressive person, but she sounds a little bit aggressive sometimes. But she's coming through that now, and she's kind of what I call chilling out.
Mm.
She's kind of coming back to the young woman that I know she is, So there's all this stuff's going on, and it's hardly surprising because she's got the stresses of school, stresses of social groups, different groups. She's got a boyfriend now, so that's kind of taken over from some of her best friends, which is interesting. So the dynamics are changing. So there's all of this stuff going on in her head. And then she's got these parents with values.
Yes.
And that gets a bit challenging. So we need to be aware. Excuse me. We need to be aware. We need to think. We need to listen. Listening is crucial.
Yes, yes.
Listening to what she's telling us or what she's not telling us. We don't want to be making assumptions. So we need to be asking questions. So there's a lot of things we need to do in relation to values, our values, her values. Oh, that's another point. She's developing some of her own values.
Values. Yeah.
And we've got to remember that. It's not just about us. Yes, we're parents. Yes, we have some experiences that she can benefit from. We have all kinds of stuff to offer, but it's not just about us. And I think that's a really big point that we need to get a hold of. So we can do some work on that. Sorry, Patience, carry on.
It's completely relevant on what you say. So I think I mentioned this in an episode one time. It's like a home is kind of like it's a little country, and in this little country we've got to take care of all the citizens of this country. So everyone needs to be able to voice their opinion and to say, okay, this is what I believe in. And but there's one thing that made me laugh when you were just talking right now is when you said, and she also got parents with the values. And we have to give it to them. Our values are boring for them often. They don't want to know our values sometimes. They're thinking, oh, you're gonna come back again with your stories from before. Yeah, but I'm not living that life. This is it's a new life now, or there's new narrative now. And I think the idea as well is to not take yourself too seriously as a parent, and not to be like too strict, but to allow flexibility into, yeah, at the moment my child might not understand the values that I'm trying to kind of like show them or make them learn, but they will understand at one point. So the idea is to stay flexible and not to be rigid into
Yeah.
this is it, the values, and this is how we do it. It's not gonna work.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think I just remembered a little incident from a few days ago. So sometimes humor is helpful.
Yeah.
So, for example, the entire bottom level of the dishwasher was full of cups, completely full of cups. Normally, cups go on the top level, not the bottom.
Yes.
So the entire bottom level is full of cups. Where did they come from? All of them, without exception, out of one daughter's room. So what did I respond with? Hey, have you seen the bottom level of the dishwasher? Well, yeah, there's a lot of cups in there. Yeah, no, they all came out of your room. So I wasn't angry. I thought it was hilarious. But it worked. It worked because she looked and smiled and said, oh, yeah. So she got the message. The message is simple. Please don't stash all these cups in your room. They were all dirty as well, of course. It's not like they were clean. So a little bit of humor
Yeah.
worked. There was no confrontation. We didn't have a little argument about it or anything like that. But the message went across. And sometimes I think that's what we've got to do. We've got to be a little bit more laid back, a little bit more
Yes.
relaxed.
Yeah.
I
We've
know it's
got to
difficult.
we've got to have the chill attitude.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So
Completely
great.
agree.
So how are we doing? Are we done for today, patients? Or is there something
Um,
else you'd like to?
to be honest, there's always something else we could talk about.
I know. Definitely.
Unfortunately, we can't go on forever, and I think it's always good to because what we're doing in this podcast is that we're giving starting points to parents and to young people. So if you need extra support, if you need any actual so basically actual one-to-one advice, just get in touch with us, get in touch with Steve, get in touch with myself. You have our details there, and then we can go a little bit further into supporting you in your relationship with your young people,
Yeah.
your kids. So I think that's what we're going to do for today, and we're going to have to leave for another day. If you have, this is just putting it out there. If you have any topics that you would like us to discuss, or anything that you find pressing, just give us a message, and we'll do an episode on that as well.
Yeah. Brilliant.
All right.
Thanks,
So
patients.
yeah, thank you, Steve. And we'll see you next week then. Bye bye.
Yeah. Definitely. Take care, everybody. Bye.